Welcome to Nokia 5G Talks, the professional podcast exploring Nokia technologies. Hello, today we are going to talk about automation. What is it, and especially what is it, the automation at Nokia, how we started our journey with automation with two other colleagues, also where we are, briefly touching CI/CD, GitOps, and obviously AI, how we are using automation in delivery and operation, and also how we use it inside R&D. So stay with us in the next half an hour for automation. Welcome to 5G Talks. I'm Greg, Automation Solution Architect, and today I'm going to talk about with two other colleagues, Tímea and Attila. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, this is Tímea László. I'm working as a product owner and R&D manager.
I'm Attila Hegyi. I'm an automation architect here at Nokia.
Fun question. Question is, do you know overall in the world what was the first automation what we invented in the human history?
Like Nokia?
Not Nokia. Overall.
Honestly.
In thousands of years you can go back. Guess what was the first one? Which area, approximately when, and what it was used for?
I don't know. I can just guess telco.
No.
Okay.
So I guess so, like windmill or things
Getting
like
close,
that.
yes.
But also, if we are talking about, for example, calculus and so that abacus and things like that, it is also some kind of automation because you are helping some processes which are repeating. I don't know.
So
Tell us.
you are good close to agriculture. Before Christ, 6,500 years, there was called threshing sledge. So basically this was a sledge which is put it on the ground and used to separate the seeds from the crops. So in that case, what it cut it down and they run in and pulled by donkeys or ox and it's separated out. And it was the first automation which make it not separate by hand, but use some kind of tool for, and that was basically what I found as the first automation. Okay, then let's move to automation more today. So can you briefly tell me what is automation in telco, in telecommunication? What is meaning for you, automation in telco?
Maybe I start first. I think there's one fact that usually people don't know about telco, that we have one specific rule to fulfill, the 5 nines, that in the 99.9909% of the time, we have to be available. I mean, the telco services. And people don't know that because we can talk with the mobile phones and we can use the services. But if it's not available, then it's a huge problem and everybody recognizes it. And I think that's what we are doing in the background, to automate everything, that it's up and running. And if there is a failure, we can quickly recover from that. And we can deliver services in a way that they don't even recognize.
So that means that only one call can fail from 100,000 calls.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good comparison.
So, and what's meaning for you, automation?
Automation is simplification, I guess. So that for me, if you automate something, that means you want to help the operation, the processes, and you want to simplify things. Of course, that means that the process itself will be simplified, but it also results kind of a more complex system because the automation system has to take the workload from the human, from the operator.
So manual effort, yeah, reducing the manual effort,
yes,
right?
Yes.
And okay, and if we go a little bit, just to draw a picture, maybe for our family, that how is the telco, how we structure today our automation? How would you draw that? What pieces are there in this whole automation pipeline?
I think there are certain levels of automation also in telco, but it's true for all the real life because basically everything is around us is already automated or semi-automated. So we have network functions which are forming this whole network service which we are using for cellular calls, for internet browsing and stuff like this. Usually the users don't know about those. So they are just using the phone and they take it as it granted so that everything is working as it is. And you were talking about the 5 nines. These are kind of granted things. And for the user, for the consumers, it is something which is granted. For our customers, the operators, it is something which they have to provide. So this is kind of a service. So there are certain levels of automation. One automation is inside the network function. So the network function itself has to provide automation to provide the fine lines. But there are also service level automations, which basically we are mainly working on, because we are working on a bit higher level for automating these network functions and the deployment of those and management of those. So yes, the certain automation is like providing easy operational aspects of the building blocks, and then the higher level block, and then the higher level. So this is a layered structure, I think.
Yeah, I fully agree with that. I would just extend that besides being layered, there are certain vendors, a lot of vendors working on the same environment. So different vendor provides the hardware, different vendor provides the platform, then the network functions. Sometimes even different vendors provide different network functions that belongs to the one network. And there are automation tools on top, and those are also layered. So you can imagine for an operator how complex it is that they need to operate something that someone else developed and different companies developed, and they need to make sure that it's up and running all the time. It's not easy.
Yeah, and I think this is where, for example, standardization bodies and organizations are coming in the picture, because so telco is a very well regulated and standardized area, and this is because of that. So because of multiple vendors have to work together, because each vendor can provide certain functionality in the network, but these has to be compatible with each other. So these network function has to be compatible, and also the automation on top has to rely on those standardized API, standardized workflows which are there. So yeah, that's it.
Going more into Nokia and automation, what was the first time when you touched automation when you came here?
For me, it was security testing of our own product. So I was supposed to build a small tool that was able to compare different results from the same security testing tool for our own product, so that you can quickly discover the new things, new security leaks. That was my first project.
When I started at Nokia, actually I was hired by Tímea, because
it was a good decision.
she was my line manager, and so we were working in the research. And our main project or objective was the 5G automation, and so that was a newly formed team. I was there. So this is where I first heard the word automation, and especially orchestration. Orchestration was an overused word at the time, but basically that is also kind of a synonym for the automation. And yeah, so we were working on different automation projects, especially network function, deployment automation, and things like that. So the ETSI Mano model and things like that, we were heavily tried to utilize it, tried to invent some new things. Application orchestration was, for example, one thing which we worked on. And also DevOps and things like that. So these things had come with when I joined Nokia, basically, I already jumped into the automation.
Also for me, so when I joined as a functional tester, instantly we have to write functional test cases, which are testing in automated manner product. So how it happened that there was server deployed, and we had this functional test queue, and all of them one by one was tested, and then I had to write those test cases. And later also I wrote test plans and so on. So we had to create automated test cases. Mm-hmm. I would go further with a little bit more 5G, and even if you have 6G use cases, what you worked on and what areas we are exploring. So which areas you worked on for 5G use cases?
Yeah, when we worked together in research, we had a project to show what are the benefits of 5G. And there is an event annually, Mobile World Congress, where Nokia usually goes and shows the newest things. And we've been there with the research team. And what we showed, there were 8 cars running in a shape of 8. And we switched between 4G and 5G. And we showed the difference, how faster the cars could stop, because they were linked to the same server. And with 5G, it was much faster how they communicated. And if someone just pushed the hand in front of the first car, if they were linked to 4G, they stopped quite slowly. But when we switched to 5G, it was really fast. You just put your hand there, and all the cars stopped in a minute. And that was, I think, it's a cool demo. So we showed it a lot of people, especially young folks, love that.
Cars, yeah, yes. And telco.
Yeah. So this ultra low latency use cases are basically the first realistic 5G use cases, which I think it is still kind of a promise. So because we don't have real applications which are actually relying on that, because the vehicle to vehicle communication is something which didn't progress that fast as the telecommunication networks did. But yeah, so that is a really cool use case, and for that, the application orchestration project which we just did, it was also about placement, so how we have to place these certain network functions to actually provide this really low latency. Because you know that the latency has some physical limits, so that a correlation with the physical distance. So if, for example, you have a national-wide network, and if everything is centralized, then of course it will result higher latency if you are going further from this central data center. So our idea was to kind of put really close these user-facing gateways and basically dynamically orchestrate those based on the load, based on the traffic, based on the place or the location of the users. So I think that was a really cool 5G use case, which I believe will be realized maybe in the 6G, because so currently the applications are not there. But for example, the online gaming is also, or not online gaming, but the remote gaming is also something which is a cool thing, and it is already with us, so that the data center is running the game, and you are just basically streaming it and using your much weaker device to play games like this. So yeah.
I believe we can go further in that. So if we have to draw a little bit of the architecture of the automation, can you explain that what pieces are there? Just go a little bit more in the technical details.
I think it's just how Attila already started to explain, that we have levels of automation. So we provide automation for the platform, because when we want to deploy a new service, a new network service, of course we start from there. So we assume that the hardware is already up and running and you can access it, but we have to put everything on top. Like we are running our applications, and usually everyone runs their applications in Kubernetes platform. So we are providing our own, and we can create those clusters where the application components can run. Then we provide automation for the application itself. We call it lifecycle management. You can deploy, you can scale, you can monitor the application. So everything is provided in a single pane of glass. You can do both in the same. And there's slicing on top. Maybe I give you the ball now, because you work more on there.
But I don't want to go too much details, but yeah. And I also, so these levels are, that is also true, or layers are true, but also there are these vertical kind of separations. For example, the planning or design phase and the execution or deployment phase. So we were talking about deployment. So basically the platform is something which is providing the lifecycle operations and configuration data management. But we also have automation for planning and design phase, which is also important. Actually, Greg, you can talk about that, because you are heavily involved in.
Yeah, so basically there is one dimension that what we have at the customer side. Obviously, we have what is happening. That's a preparation, what you call dimensioning or design area. So there we have many pieces in the tool pipeline. We have to do a proper dimensioning. Obviously, if you would like to make the footprint well, that's not using overused hardware or not have unnecessary hardware on the network, we obviously have to dimension well based on what we would like to provide as a service. So we have to know exactly what is we call it traffic profile for the certain operator customer. And based on that, we can say that which components, applications are required in the network. And then we dimension that say, okay, that will be the scale. We have to count in it also. It's not just that the application is there, as you mentioned, that how to serve the 5 lines, which means that if something happens, we have the redundancy there. So we have to dimension that well. We have to think many aspects. And after that, we go for the more detailed planning. We know that, okay, how we have to put inside the box everything, all of the parameters are there to make, because after we make a good package, we put into a central repository and we deliver to our customer in an automated fashion. And after that, that's what you mentioned, that you download the package and then you can bring it up in a one hit or basically in fully automated manner. And also we have what you mentioned, this operation and maintenance aspect of it, to monitor the network, how is it performing.
And root cause analysis, because we are in multi-vendor and multi-layered model. So the operator has to know what happens and who is who needs to solve it, which vendor.
Exactly. Going a little bit further in automation, we draw now that how the delivery happens and also how we operate that. But what additional use cases of automation we are exploring?
I think what we are doing in Nokia is more diverse than usually people think, because we are not just connecting phones. In research, we had a project which was supposed to measure the speed of a car in a highway. It's already set in a couple of countries, I believe, in Europe, so that you enter in a certain time to the highway and then you leave in another time, and they calculate the average speed. And if it's higher than what's possible, then they will send you the bill. And I think that's again where you can use the network for a service which is not really connecting the phones, but still affecting the people. And I'm not happy by this, but it's there.
Yeah, actually, that's also true. So we have plenty of free capacity on top of providing the network service, so that the people usually see that there are base stations and antennas there, and this is what they see from the network and nothing else. These networks, the network functions are running on some kind of hardware. Usually nowadays they are these more standardized common hardware running in the cloud, but the cloud is providing additional freedom to host additional functionality in the network. So that is also something you can use it, for example, additional, not really network related tasks or logics to provide. For example, you can collect, weather information and things like that, and then calculate. Or there was a research project about aggregating air pollution data and then providing it and feeding it to some other vendors or some other companies who were using this data. So we can, and this is also needs additional automation, because this is basically network-aware applications. So these are applications on top of the network service, and we are basically putting next to our network functions. So I think this is kind of a nice and future direction to provide. Expose the network to applications which can leverage from network data and can fine-tune the network based on their needs. And it also requires automation, because if a human needs to configure these kind of applications, it is a nightmare, because we have plenty of places where we have to deploy, we have plenty of configuration parameters we have to do. So this is also something which requires automation, and we can provide automation.
And which solution we are using for that to automate that? To handle the large network much simpler, so from more or less.
I thought that orchestration is something, so that we have certain orchestrators for providing this kind of functionality. We have certain products which are kind of fulfilling this automation aspect. This is a service level orchestration. It is providing lifecycle management. It is providing also the configuration management. And so, as my research project was that, so this application orchestration is also something which can provide this information or this capability. It is not there in our portfolio, but in the future maybe it can be.
So we are briefly talking about GitOps.
GitOps can be something which can use this, so we can use basically GitOps. Not GitOps is using us, but we are using GitOps. Yeah. So this is the current direction which we are following, and I think this is a good direction. In the research we had spent a lot of years on researching that area, how it can be used in telco, because the audience may know or may not that telco. So in IT we have certain automation solutions already. So the GitOps is not a new thing; it is already very well used in the standard IT world. In the telco, it is approaching, and we start to use it, but it is still something which is a bit new. So we have to tailor-made it for our needs.
I think the challenge with GitOps right now is that it's really intent-based, and you want to make sure that you have a database with what you want to achieve from the network, and you expect that it maintains that state, and whatever is changing, it will just recover from that, which is nice. But in telco, the operators want to control everything because of the 5 nines, because they have to make sure that we are up and running and the service is there all the time. And I think it's a mind shift for the operators as well, because they need to let the tools control these things, and they need to let them decide and just monitor and interact when it's needed. But for us, we need to make sure that it's happening automatically, but they have the control as well anytime. And these things should come together, and that's quite a complex thing we need to solve, and we are doing it right now.
Yeah, I think it is also important that our customers actually used to have, so they already have a certain operational model. This GitOps-based, intent-based operational model is a really huge change in the current way of working. So we have to find the balance how we can how we can provide the transition from the traditional model to this new model, and also how to provide and build up trust.
Exactly. That's the word I wanted to say.
So our automation solution is reliable, trustable, and they don't actually need to have this really fine-grained control over the whole system, because they can trust the automation. So they only need to. So we have to provide the monitoring and observability for our tooling and for the whole system to show that everything is working, because the automation can handle it. Until now, they were more trusting on the human intervention, and still they have to do this. Or also there are certain cases where the automation cannot provide that good solution yet. What a human can do. So the human still has to be involved into the decision, but maybe we can try to shift this towards the automation and provide just these intervention points in a much higher level than it was before.
And to achieve that trust in the network, we also can use these monitoring solutions what we have, and also we can use some AI tooling as well to have prevention for any problems, right? We talk about intents. Can you briefly a little bit expand what is intent?
Yeah, it's hard to explain because the term explains itself. It's but the user could describe what he or she wants to achieve, and it expects the system to figure out how to approach there. So it's not like previously with the workflow, you described all the steps that the system needs to operate, but you expect the system to figure out how to approach from one state to the other. So basically you just described that this is what I want to achieve, please solve it for me, and I don't care how you do it, just make it reliable.
And what intent use cases we have? Like deployment, I guess, also we can have upgrade as well?
So the intent is a declarative thing. So that and basically, so you are here. We also have multiple layers as we talked about. So there can be really close, really low-level intents, which are the network function can understand or the automation system can understand, and there are higher intents which are just I want a network function which is working, or I have a network when I need a 5G slice which is doing this and that.
Low latency, or a different one for high bandwidth.
Yes.
Different use cases.
So there are certain levels of intents, and you can but the common in both of these intents, they are declarative. So you are declaring some capabilities, but you are not describing how you want to achieve, because the automation will know how it can be achieved. So the intent is basically something which how you express, but it also has to connect to a closed loop automation which understands this intent and then tries to fulfill the intent. So the intent fulfillment is basically the automation. The intent itself is the interface towards this automation system. And what kind of use cases we have? So we have with GitOps, basically the IT is already using this declarative intent-based operational model, and this is what we are also using. Currently, we have basically our solutions are based on Kubernetes. So Kubernetes is a really most of the people think this is just a container orchestration system, which is true. But luckily, the Kubernetes itself had provided this framework, which is the Kubernetes API and the Kubernetes extension capabilities, which helps to build a really good intent framework around your system. And this is what we are also leveraging. So Kubernetes-based automation is our core in some of the products. Even the network functions are heavily utilizing Kubernetes, and then our automation platform is also utilizing the Kubernetes and the Kubernetes intent framework. So, and then if you are expressing something in an intent, then this closed loop automation can provide a solution for that. And basically this is what we are implementing here in Nokia. So that we are implementing closed loop automation systems and intent interfaces towards.
So basically what is happening is that layer by layer distribution. So in high level, you describe that this is what I want. That's the state what I would like to have. And then in one or multiple levels, depending on the case, you go one by one down into basically to the lowest parameter level, right? And they said, okay, that's if you would like to have that state, these are the values what you have to configure for. And in that case, the network start to behave as expected.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's need to have the correlations and know exactly, even we can use AI to analyze that, okay, that if we have that state, that how I can, as you mentioned, many parameters distributed or distilled down into a few parameters just to define the minimal amount of parameters to achieve that state. So that means that an operation will be much easier.
Yeah. So,
just to give an example, imagine New Year's Eve when a lot of people would like to use our services, and you have to increase the capacity of the network, and that's a demand that is temporary, and you have to solve it quickly, and then you shut it down, the extra capacity, and now you do it by, people decide that, okay, we know about New Year's Eve and we do this. But if using AI, you can prevent things and you can figure out what will happen in the future, and it can tell you that, hey, I see some anomaly in the system. I think you need to increase the services quickly. If you want, I can do that for you, like this. So just to give an example or a use case for the automation.
So for example, this mega event use case can actually also utilize, for example, public cloud capabilities, because the operators usually, or our customers, have certain data center which has a certain capacity. Usually it is some network functions are deployed there which has dimensioned for the certain capacity. But for example, to serve this kind of higher demand on certain areas, then maybe they don't have that capacity in their data center, so they could leverage from scaling out even to an external data center, for example, public cloud providers data center or cloud solution, where we can also scale our network function, and then it can provide that extra capacity for that certain event, for example.
Also, you can use SaaS model for that. So basically,
Yes.
That even Nokia can provide a network and say, okay, that if you would like to have additional capacity, then you can use our SaaS model as well. And just temporary or even as a backup, you can use the SaaS model as well. Thank you very much for your thoughts and discussion.
Thanks for inviting us. It was great.
And thank you very much for listening to 5G Talks. Please follow us on social media and also check out other episodes. Bye. Thank you for listening to Nokia 5G Talks. Check out other episodes exploring Nokia technologies.